and we are here to talk about kidney stones, which I think you guys usually hear about when someone says that they have like the worst pain in their life and they go to the doctor and their doctor tells them to drink a ton of water. Well, we're about to talk about a new study that kind of says that it's probably not true. In this randomized trial of over 1,600 patients, there was no difference in kidney stone recurrence between a group that was essentially made to drink a ton of water versus a control group. About 19% versus 20% had another symptomatic kidney stone over 2 years. Urine volume went up, but stone recurrence didn't go down. Telling people to increase their hydration doesn't help decrease stone formation. The experimental group was making about 1.8 liters, which is still far below the liters. Again, what was your liters? It was 2 point something?
Maybe it's not just the quantity of urine, it's the quality of the urine. Cringe a little bit when I see the headlines that will simply say not drinking, that recommendation of water, increasing water consumption doesn't help people with kidney stone, because it's so much more nuanced than just that, and that just gets lost in the tweets and it gets lost in the headlines.
We may have a behavioral ceiling problem.
Yeah, I think I'll echo that. Water toxicity there is such a thing as drinking too much water.
The worst pain in their life, worse than anything they've ever experienced, and it's a stupid stone in their kidney, and they're trying everything to flush it out. And so it was just, what an interesting study. Welcome to Only Oncologists in the building. I'm Shruti Patel. I'm here with Emil Liu and Shalon Big, and we are here to talk about kidney stones. Which I think you guys usually hear about when someone says that they have like the worst pain in their life and they go to the doctor and their doctor tells them to drink a ton of water and hopefully the kidney stone will pass. Well, we're about to talk about a new study that kind of says that it's probably not true. So let me start with the punchline. In this randomized trial of over 1,600 patients, there was no difference in kidney stone recurrence between a group that was essentially made to drink a ton of water versus a control group, which kind of just did their routine standard care. About 19% versus 20% had another symptomatic kidney stone over 2 years. And so and that's despite the fact that the intervention group, so the group that was encouraged to drink more water, actually had an increase in their urine volume. So what do you guys think about that on its face before we get into the study a bit more?
It was always very common sense, right? You have kidney stones. People who are underhydrated are more likely to get kidney stones. So if you fix the underhydration and you overhydrate yourself, then it should take care of the kidney stones. And here we have a trial which is challenging the current perspective on what we can do in order to reduce kidney stones. Now, there are a lot of problems because the guidelines actually say that if you are trying to drink enough water to prevent kidney stones, you have to produce at least 2.5 liters of urine a day. And for our US audience, I converted that into ounces and gallons. That's 84 ounces of urine, or 0.66 gallons of urine a day. I don't think that I've really hit that for a while. And one of the challenges for the study is neither the control arm nor the investigation arm really hit that threshold of urine, but still, it's fairly common sense. And the fact that they couldn't see a difference between the two groups is kind of concerning and makes me think about a lot of the recommendations that we give our patients on a regular day.
Yeah, it's like, who wants to drink that much and who wants to go pee that much? That is what it comes down to. We always talk about, even outside of kidney stones, the proverbial 8 glasses of water per day. I think as we delved into the science of it, is really just kind of made up. And then when you apply it to kidney stones, even putting aside cranberry juice for bladderitis and other things like that. But yeah, I think maybe it's a relief to people who have kidney stones or are worried about it, that they don't have to go drinking that much just because. And here's some scientific evidence to prove just don't need that much.
Yeah. So really, well, we're going to talk about the methods because I want us to all understand with our listeners, is the conclusion of this paper true, right? And but to your guys' point, just really quickly, we have a lot of patients who also have to take like diuretics, and peeing that much in a day is very disruptive to your life, right? And so that's probably why it's really hard to do and execute. But let's talk about the methods a little bit more in detail, because I want I want us to understand what do you mean by intensive fluid program, right? And so this was a big trial in a bunch of centers across the United States, and they split patients into one group, which was like usual care. We encourage you to drink more water, and then a pretty intensive hydration program. And when I say intensive, I mean personalized daily fluid goals, not food goals, coaching to help them stick with it, reminder texts, and financial incentives. Okay. And I feel like that's kind of wild because like money's involved. You think people are way more likely to do things. And so basically everything short of following them around with a water bottle is kind of how I see it. Really tried to do the most. And I think that's really important. And again, they followed these patients for about 2 years and looked at what mattered clinically, which is whether the patients had another symptomatic kidney stone, meaning they passed a stone or they needed a procedure. And so, sorry, I love that we have editing. So,
Yeah.
and again, even with all that, urine volume went up, but stone recurrence didn't go down. So, and there was no difference in new stones or stone growth. And so, really, it makes us think, understandably, that the conclusion is that, oh, we've been telling patients to drink a lot of water. There's no benefit. And actually, I've seen a lot of tweets about this article. It's kind of big for us, right? Because I would say from day one of intern year when we were all in training, it was kidney stones fluid, kidney stones fluid. And so I think this is pretty crazy. Everyone's tweeting about how like, oh my God, increasing hydration doesn't really help. But I think the details of the study are important because of what you said earlier, Shalon, which was that they didn't hit that goal, right? The goal is, well, how many gallons? 0.6 gallons of urine a day.
Just too much.
And when you look at the actual study, even with all of that, urine volume went up, but stone recurrence didn't go down. There were no difference in new stones or stone growth in terms of size. And so what this really, the authors kind of understandably concluded is, hey, telling people to increase their hydration doesn't help decrease stone formation. But to your point, Shalon, what you said earlier is how much patients have to drink? 0.66 gallons of urine to produce. Did the study hit that? And so they did they showed a graph, which I have pulled up here, with kind of the urine volume for the patients. And it looks like, of course, the control group had less urine production than the experimental group. And so, but the 24-hour urine volume at month 6, where there was the biggest separation, the control group was making 1.5 liters of urine, and the experimental group was making about 1.8 liters, which is still far below the liters. Again, what was your liters? It was 2 point something.
2.5 liters of urine a day is what is generally recommended for kidney stone producers to make.
So what do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about the results and the fact that, now it was 1.8 liters of urine that these patients were able to produce with this intensive program?
Brings to mind, as board certified internists, what we learned also, probably in first year of medical school, about pathophysiology and just regular physiology, right? So for kidney, the body has a remarkable ability to adjust. So maybe it's not just the volume, maybe it's just not pure water, but I think of things like pH and, oh my gosh, acid-base physiology and other things. So maybe it's what you might drink, not so much just a pure thing about volume, but it's also acid-base chemistry, what the pH might be, and whether there might be other types of drinks and with or without other types of electrolytes that might have more of an effect. But it's certainly not the onrush of making you go to the bathroom more that might make the difference here.
I think you're absolutely right. It's not just the quantity of urine, it's the quality of the urine that can impact kidney stones. And the study didn't really specify what they should be drinking. I think they're just recommending to drink water. But remember, clinical research is really, really hard because in this study, both the intervention arm and the control arm both saw a bump in their urine production. So maybe the control arm also did well, so we weren't able to see a difference between both arms for that purpose. Or maybe because the intervention arm didn't hit the threshold of 2.5 liters, maybe that's why we didn't see a difference. Or maybe, as Emil is saying, that it's actually related to the quality of the urine and what are the chemical composition and the acidity of the urine that makes a difference, and not the volume. And this study didn't really test that. So I cringe a little bit when I see the headlines that will simply say not drinking, that recommendation of water, increasing water consumption doesn't help people with kidney stone, because it's so much more nuanced than just that, and that just gets lost in the tweets and it gets lost in the headlines.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I kind of think that this is what this the conclusion of this paper should have maybe been, is that we may have a behavioral ceiling problem. We are designing better tools. We have these incentives, the coaching, and even with that, we are not able to get to the goal of 2.5 liters. And I think we do this all the time in medicine, right? We say, exercise more, please, eat better, please, take this therapy daily, and stay hydrated. And we dramatically underestimate how hard it is. And even though it is hard for us as well, at least it's hard for me to stay working out, or, all of those things, and eating fiber and all these things that I know are good for me, right? And so I think the conclusion of the study is, to me, less about hydration. I would absolutely tell my patients still, if you can get to 2 liters, 2.5 liters a day, I would say absolutely go ahead and try to keep doing that. This doesn't necessarily change that for me, but I think what it does tell me is that even with a lot of tools, it is really hard to change behavior when the behavior is something that's not that comfortable, whether it's urinating 0.6 gallons a day versus working out every day, eating 33 grams of fiber every day, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's like any medical intervention. You think, what's the worst that could happen? It's like, well, I think a lot of doctors will continue to say, just hydrate. There is a study, but continue to hydrate, continue to exercise. But let's take this as a prime example where decades and decades of physician and medical provider recommendations are hard to overcome. Even if you produce some data, whether or not the study is sound, it almost is, I think of wild scientific things like in physics, Bernoulli's principle. We need to get water experts and hydrodynamic experts to come evaluate. But I think I'll come back to the idea that we learned calcium oxalate and the composition of these stones to get all scientific. That maybe there's some pH adjustment or other type of drinks. Maybe other studies will show the type of drink that might be more efficacious, more likely to work than just pure water.
I don't think that our recommendation for asking people with kidney stones to increase fluid intake should change on the basis of these results. But I think we need to be very careful, because even with this increase of up to 1,800 milliliters of urine a day on the people in the intervention arm, 12 of those patients saw that their sodium levels went down. They didn't go down to dangerous levels. They didn't see complications from that, but it did start impacting their sodium levels. So I worry about carelessly or callously recommending people to increase their urine to 2.5 liters, because there could be complications related to other electrolyte changes. So to the point that we made earlier is we need more work to really understand, yes, the ideal ability to consume certain amount of fluid it varies from person to person. What is the quality of the intake that they're doing? And then for the three of us, is 2.5 liters the same goal for all three of us, or should it be different for one person or the other? And the current guidelines don't really address those. But until then, I think I'm going to stick with the 2.5 liter recommendation, understanding that these nuances are there, and it's really hard. These patients who were randomized to the intervention arm were peeing more frequently. They had more urinary urgency. They were waking up at night to pee more. It's it can be a quality of life reducer to drink so much fluid. So we shouldn't ignore those risks.
Yeah, I think I'll echo that. Water toxicity there is such a thing as drinking too much water. So just all things in moderation.
Everything in the world is toxic in excess. Okay, well, great discussion about this. I just thought it was a really interesting topic, again, because everyone knows someone who had a kidney stone. Everybody knows someone who's been in the worst pain in their life, worse than anything they've ever experienced, and it's a stupid stone in their kidney, and they're trying everything to flush it out. And so it was just, what an interesting study, because really it's the mainstay of treatment. I feel is we just say flush it out, so that we don't have to have an invasive procedure. And so what an interesting study. Kudos to the I would say the authors. I love when people do studies like this. They're not drug studies. They're not, they're really just trying to see these age-old adages. I don't know idioms, guys, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where's the data? Where's the evidence? And so the problem is that it's hard to implement, and we're always going to scrutinize things. But I think it's a really awesome study, and I hope you guys understand the breakdown, and I really mostly hope that this is never relevant to you, our listeners, and you never get a kidney stone. So thank you for joining us on Only Oncologists in the Building, and we'll see you next time.